Good afternoon, everyone. I am Riddhi Rathod. Today I am going to presentation topic on metaphysical poets and poetry. Metaphysical poets and poetry. In English literature, English poetry is into different form of air or ages to better understanding. Anglo-Saxon poetry, classical poetry, neoclassical poetry, romantic poetry, and modern poetry. What is meaning of metaphysical? Meta means beyond, physical means the physical world. Spiritual poetry. Samuel Johnson has written about 17th century writer who used the word metaphysical at that time. They were uses paradox. Here some major metaphysical poets: John Donne, George Herbert, Andrew Marvell, Richard Crashaw, Henry Wagman. There is a spiritual poetry about it that even science does not have an answer to, which in reality may be quite different. Author Samuel Johnson in the 18th century, these were all called metaphysical poets. Theme of metaphysical poetry: love, deep things, religion, lust, God, and spirituality. Metaphysical poetry is a genre of poetry that deals with deep and profound subjects like faith, spirituality, religion, etc. It is a highly intellectual form of poetry and presents the world to its reader in a different way. It asks questions that science cannot answer. Metaphysical poetry prompts the reader to question their reality and existence. The word meta means after or beyond, so the literal translation of metaphysical is after the physical. Basically, metaphysical deals with questions that cannot be explained by science, such as does God exists, is a soul internal, is fact or real. Author Samuel Johnson made the first use of the word metaphysical poetry. He used the term meta poet to define a group of poets of 17th century. Here, John Donne. John Donne was leader or profounder school of metaphysical poetry. He was not only poet but also lawyer, satirist, priest. There was a poet who used to argue in his poem like a clever lawyer. The most influential metaphysical poet. Most of his work centered around his personal relationship with spirituality. John Donne poem The Good Morrow use wit or conscience in comparing between the unconscious lovers and the seven sleepers who slept for 200 years between two lovers and two hemispheres. Their odd comparison signature the flare. Here I shared image which was John Donne famous poem George Herbert. George Herbert is none of his poems were published during his lifetime. He is a saint of the metaphysical school. Professor Paul Mares says about him, Herbert, the first English poet who spoke face to face with God. Here I shared image of George Herbert famous poems. Marvel was a Puritan songster. Marvel's most recognized poem. We see the poem uses wit its full force. English literature is highly indebted to this above meta poets and their poetry. Here I work cited.
Riddhi, do you think metaphysical poetry will go out of trend anytime?
According to me, metaphysical poetry and its uh, metaphors keeps the reader interested. I don't think it's boring.
Riddhi, from the metaphysical poet, which one give true justification to the metaphysics.
Samuel Johnson. Thank you.